Welcome to the SaaS Revolution Show, a podcast by SaaStock. Here we interview SaaS founders from around the world who've been there and done that, as they share the ins and outs of how they built their businesses, their operations, their path to securing investment, and more. Our mission with the podcast is to help you, the founder, learn how to scale your SaaS, maintain your well-being, and navigate the complexities of this ever-changing industry. I'm your host, Alex Theuma, and together we'll explore the good, the bad, and the ugly in the journey to SaaS success. Welcome back to the SaaS Revolution Show. I am your host, Alex Theuma, CEO founder of SaaStock, also general partner at Back Future Ventures. Delighted to be joined today by Colin Nederkoorn, who's the CEO at Customer.io. How are you doing, Colin?
Hey, Alex. Great to be here.
Good to have you on the podcast. First time. You've been running Customer.io for 13 years. I've been doing this podcast for 10 years. We finally collided. So I'm very excited for that and for the conversation ahead, Colin. We always like to start, getting to know our guests a little bit on a personal level. So would love to know, and let's let the audience know, who is Colin Nederkoorn?
Yeah, so I'm husband, father to 2 kids, and a Labrador. I'm someone who loves to understand things and tinker with things, always learning something new. I go through a lot of hobbies every year and go deep on things. Recently, I've been going deep on guitars, learning about different pickups, designs, and trying to understand the differences between the different guitar manufacturers. Like, what really is the difference between a Fender and a Gibson? And that's my latest hobby. But I was born in Singapore, spent a couple of years in the UK, and then have been in the US since I went to college or university, as you say over there.
Where do you reside in the US?
I'm in Portland, Oregon. And my wife and I moved here before we were married. We moved here in 2014.
Much of a startup scene there?
I think when I moved here, it was probably a little stronger than it has been over the past few years. But from what I'm hearing from people, things are picking up again.
Awesome. And you've been running Customer.io for over 13 years now, right? Is it your first SaaS business, first company?
I think it's the first thing I've started that actually got off the ground, and hopefully my last. But I'm really enjoying it. I'm not looking to start another company after this one. I think I've kind of been through the different stages of the business, and I don't know that I want to repeat them again. They're hard. It's nice to be on the other side.
It is hard. Any thoughts? And I'm sure you're not, because the business is doing so well, looking to exit anytime soon. But in the longer term, if and when that opportunity arises, have you any thoughts about what would be next?
I think that there's so many things I'm curious about that I would love to spend time, few months going and doing woodworking would be a fun thing to do. So I think just exploring some hobbies for a while. And I'm sure if I sat around long enough doing nothing, I would want to start another business.
Yeah, it very commonly happens, and often we see people starting very similar businesses, even almost competitors to what they previously started once the non-compete kind of goes away, which I find sort of quite interesting. Not that I would necessarily personally do it. Well, some people are looking to really challenge themselves and go into something completely different as well. But yeah, I mean that's that time. I'm sure it's along down the road, and at the moment you've built an incredible business. Perhaps you share a little bit of data around that. So would love to know how many people, part of the team at Customer.io, maybe how many customers that you're quite open about the revenue, etc.
Yeah, so we've been around for a little while now, founded the company in 2012. And today we have over 7,800 customers in 120 countries. And the customers that we have range in size. There's, big SaaS businesses like Notion, and there are other types of businesses, like we have Clar, which is like a Mexican neobank, and Pop, which connects people with vets or connects pets with vets. I think the people don't see the vets, the pets do. And then we have tons of really small startups as well. So it's we kind of those companies spread the gamut of different sizes. Revenue will probably, depending on how fast you publish this podcast,
Quite fast.
So maybe we're going to be crossing 100 million ARR soon.
Okay.
And maybe we'll have done it by the time you publish, maybe not.
Okay. Maybe we could sync up, and when the day you get hit 100 million, we'll release this podcast.
Company's been growing at 37% year over year, so it's still pretty decent growth at this size. And we have about 280 employees across 30 countries, fully distributed team. And then on the customer side, like we for our customers, we sent 64 billion messages across email, push, SMS, all of these different channels where they're communicating with their audience. So we sent 64 billion messages in 2024.
That's a lot. But yeah, congrats. I mean, you built an amazing business, and a business with real longevity. I think business that's well known, certainly in the SaaS industry. And I guess what I'd love to sort of discuss. I mean, you're getting to this point, like hitting 100 million ARR, which is fantastic. Probably I don't know what the percentage of companies that hit that, but it's probably 0.00 something. It's very, very hard to do. I guess like what we're in this era, like, I mean, it's hard to ignore it, of AI and the impact of AI, I think on the world, but also in the SaaS industry and SaaS companies that are not AI native. So I think anything that is probably like created, starting up today will probably likely be an AI native SaaS company. But given that you've been around for all this time, and I'm sure like have many kind of product iterations, at what point did you start to look at AI, think about AI, what you needed to do as a business to stay relevant? And like, what was your thoughts like around it? When did you start thinking about it? And then maybe we can like look into where you are today with that and how you're thinking about the company for the future.
Yeah, I mean, I think the ideas started percolating the first time I saw ChatGPT, and I thought it was just such a new experience in software and technology that I knew I just had the sense that it was going to be something big that we needed to respond to. And then over the next year and a half, I was struggling to sort of figure out, how do we get experience in AI and then apply that to our product. And the first place that we tried to do that was we built like an internal chatbot, an internal Slack chatbot. And it was something that I worked on with my chief of staff. And it was just to understand he did, I can't take any credit for it. My chief of staff worked on it while he was my chief of staff. And it was really just to get this exposure to all of the tools you need to do anything in AI. And our roadmap on the product side was, at that point in time, did not have any AI reflected in it. And as that kind of as the roadmap continued to sort of not reflect a meaningful change in response to AI, I grew increasingly concerned and wanted to make a bigger shift in the company and make sure that we were being really responsive to what our customers were going to need in the future. Because my expectation, which we've sort of seen start, I would say, towards the end of last year and beginning of this year, is it went from people being curious about it to it being a requirement. And at first it was a requirement that it existed on your roadmap, and then it became a requirement that you have features in the product. And then now it's a requirement that you're meaningfully transforming the way people do their work with AI in your product. And if that's not where you're going, I think as a SaaS business, you're probably in trouble. And so if you just responded to the market when the market said these things to you, you're late, and it's so hard to catch up. And that was my big concern. So we created with my CTO late last year. So we were even late to be doing this around November last year, but we created an internal AI technology advancement group. And it was my CTO and one other person, and then we hired another person onto the team, and then they started experimenting with technology and building new features into the product. And then now we're sort of still in the middle, but we're folding the learning from the AI technology advancement group and then sort of making the rest of the product and engineering organization work that way. And so I think over time, there's not this division in the company of like, here's people over here working on AI and here's everyone just doing the normal roadmap. Those roadmaps really have converged already. And the product we're building in the future, or the product we're building for the future, is this AI enabled at the foundation level version of Customer IO.
What is the I guess the response been within your customer base, and maybe even at the point when you're building this AI team? I'm sure you're obviously having conversations with the customers, and were they at this curious stage and saying, well, we don't really care if you build this AI stuff, and you actually really need to do this, right, if we're going to continue to use you? And I guess kind of fast forward to today, and they have the AI features, right, and they're kind of responding like, we love the product before, but like, now it's it's even better, or whatever the feedback is.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've had a few customers be really, really forward and aggressive in their own adoption of AI. And it's been so helpful to have that pushed onto us. They're the very, very early adopters of AI. And I think that I took that as the signal for everyone else is going to be here in 12 months. And so I think by and large, like there are many customers today who aren't pushing us for AI features. They're happy with the product that they bought. But I think that the trend that I see in our customers' businesses is that when they look at their teams, they're looking for people who are specialized in one area. They're sort of like T-shaped people. They're specialized in one area, but they're responsible for, a whole part of the company's business. And in this case, lifecycle emails or lifecycle messaging. And they might be the strategist, but now they're responsible for design and copywriting and all of these other things that you need to do that traditionally would be on a 5-person team, but now there's one person responsible for it. And we've seen that with early stage companies where there's only 3 people in the company and someone has to be responsible for everything. But you're starting to see this in mid-stage companies as well, where the expectation from whoever's running the company is that people do more with less and they use AI to fill in the gaps in their knowledge and capabilities. And they're having, pretty good success doing that. I think we're like reimagining the product for that world where it might be one person who has to be responsible for a really complex customer engagement program. And it's just like things are changing very, very quickly. And it's for us to still be relevant in 12, 24 months, we have to change for that. We have to be ahead of where that is. And it's going so quickly, so hard to stay ahead.
Yeah, it is going ever so quickly. And so what you said, like in terms of like initially like bringing in these AI features to, where it's going on is now at where the whole platform will be powered by AI. Like how do you thought, or maybe perhaps still thinking, given the the fast pace of how things are moving, like creating new AI products? I mean, similar, like if we look at the intercom example, there is still intercom, but then they've created Fin, which is almost like a new business, right? And that Fin on its own is doing 100 million ARR, right? Have you, as I'm sure a creative CEO, kind of like looked at that and also like thought and come up with some ideas and played with AI and just like, oh, like I could be creating this and yeah, just like where do you stand like around that?
Yeah, I think our vision for Customer IO was this, at least the initial vision for Customer IO was this experimentation platform where you would see some customer behavior you are hoping to nudge in a different direction. Like someone signs up for your product, you want them to invite a friend as a simple example. And so what you're going to use Customer IO for is to send this is like very early days. You send an email to the person with reasons why they should invite their friend, and then they click a button, go invite their friend, and you sort of complete this loop. And we never really in the V1 pre-AI, we never really got to the point where you could come to us with your hope, right? Like, hey, I see that people are not inviting friends. Can you help me do everything I need to do to get them to be able to invite a friend? And then like give me a measurable improvement on that conversion rate. And I think that we're now with LLMs, like are able to do the content generation. We're able to look at the data coming in and a set of customers and sort of say, well, we think that these are the things that correlate to driving that outcome that you want. And then we're able to like run experiments, interpret the experiments. And I think that initial idea that we had, that initial vision, is now possible. So in my mind, we're not building a new product. We're just finally able to build the vision of the product that we wanted to build back in 2012. And so I think that when we're applying AI, we're sort of looking at these core concepts in the product and figuring out what's the better version of that we can use an LLM for, and working through, all of the different areas of the product to AI enable it.
You've got pretty good growth, right? 37% year over year. Do you think that by making this fully AI product, you might see some of this explosive growth that we're seeing in the market? Like, have you been thinking around that? Look, we're making this, or we've made this transition. This 37% might become 100%, or so on and so forth. Or are you still looking like okay, well, 37% every year is it's pretty damn good?
Yeah, I think it's great. Would be great to maintain it. I would be really happy maintaining 37% year over year. I think there's our core business, which is very much has like SaaS characteristics. I think when we're seeing really explosive growth of AI companies, it's not at 80% gross margin. It's at like 20% or maybe less. And I think that we may ultimately have some features in the product that if a customer adopts them, they'll then be, spending based on their usage of AI or of LLM calls. And so in that case, you could imagine really, high growth of usage on a large customer, and their bill might double. But the way that it doubles is not 80% gross margin, it's 20% gross margin. And so I think we'll probably, I would expect we'll see some growth in that way, but my goal would be for that core business that we have today to continue growing as it is. So there's like that healthy base of 37% year over year, 80% gross margin. And then on top of that, we'll layer on some AI usage growth.
What about maybe some of the internal tools that you're using for AI, maybe whether it's in the development team, things like Cursor, etc., obviously very popular, and how you've adopted things like that, if you have, and perhaps even on the GTM side, obviously seeing a lot of, an explosion across all of these sectors, but perhaps things that you brought in that are working that you like, as a business or personally.
On the internal tooling side, I mean, we're using every development tool there is. So, Claude Code is widely used. Cursor is widely used. And we've had some good success. One of the things we did recently was a really small team built our internal admin tool using, heavily assisted by, I think it was with Claude Code. And so we've had some really, really good success to just speed up, especially either sort of throwaway or non-customer facing things, as well as customer facing things. But I would say that you really get a lot of pace going 0 to 1. And it's a little slower going when you're iterating on a existing production feature. And then on the internal side, we've experimented a lot with Slack chatbots. We've got one now that we built in-house. I think there's this balance between figuring out how to use some of the LLMs directly versus using someone else's wrapper around the LLM. And I think that's the big question I have about a bunch of the tools out there are how durable are they really? At what point does the LLM provider create their own wrapper that's good enough that they're giving to you to expect you to build something on top of that, or they're just doing it as a demo, but it's good enough for most companies. And I think at our size and customer base size, every time we update our sub-processor list, we have to, go to our customers. And so there's some friction to add new tools. Not to say that we won't do it, but it has to be worth it. So I'd say we'll look externally and see if there's a great option. And if there's not a great option, or we think that the additional value on top of the LLM is not big, we might look at building ourselves.
What about your thoughts just around, let's say, the SaaS market and the impact of AI in respect of, when we spoke earlier, you mentioned that, if SaaS companies are not already, building AI or becoming AI first, then they're in trouble, right? I think those were the words that you sort of mentioned. But what are your thoughts around, like, is SaaS still going to be a category, in a few years' time? Are all those SaaS companies, if they've made that transition, just going to be AI companies? Will we just be saying AI? How do you think about that from a market? Because I go to your website, you can see SaaS is one of the categories of the markets that you serve. Do you think about, is that still going to be the case? I mean, ultimately, the AI natives, they are SaaS companies, but they've just got the AI technology there. But any thoughts of how this is going to change within the market, and how do you see that?
I think there's lots that I don't know, and there's definitely some pressure that I see. Like, if you're a per seat SaaS product, there's pressure. And that comes from companies not expecting to have to keep growing their employee bases the way that they have in the past. And if you're, I think there was sort of an example that I saw on Twitter or on X where someone had cloned DocuSign. And DocuSign, I don't know what their market cap is, but they're a very big, pretty successful SaaS company, right? And I think that there's, and I don't think that their feature set and functionality was ever their value, right? So being able to say, oh, look, I have something identical to DocuSign, that's not why you're buying DocuSign. You're buying DocuSign because of the trust that it gives and it gives both parties in this contract signing process that you're doing. And sort of you can question how valid that trust, how much that's actually worth. But I don't think that someone being able to clone DocuSign with AI is going to displace DocuSign. And their customer base and they probably have enough durability that whatever meaningful attack an AI native competitor can wield against them, they have enough time because they've got multi-year enterprise contracts. They have enough time to address that. So that's what I think. I could be wrong. I mean, in 5 years, DocuSign may not exist. But my sense is that a lot of the existing SaaS companies, that the transformative nature of AI doesn't doesn't displace all existing SaaS companies. It gives them this incredible tool to adapt and enter this, change their business if they're willing and able to enter this new era where they're still relevant. They may not look identical to what they did before before the proliferation of AI, and but they'll still be there in some meaningful form.
A couple of questions to sort of wrap up, maybe some more like quickish fire questions, Colin. So like let's say every SaaS CEO at the moment, how much time should they be thinking or spending on AI, would you say?
I mean, I think that you have to understand it. And what I do to try and understand it is I'll vibe code some things. I'll play around with every new model that comes out. But I definitely don't go as deep as other people on my team, and I don't go as deep as some people that I see on the internet. So a lot of my understanding of the sort of cutting edge of LLMs is like secondhand. So I'll read a lot and then I'll experiment some. But yeah, I'm not. And so I think you have to know that, because you have to know what's possible. And you have to be able to imagine, take what's possible and apply it to your business. And then that gap between, what's possible and where you are now is really what you are trying to help the company understand, so that you can fill that gap. But it's always moving as well. So it's just such an interesting time. So I think if you're a CEO, you have to spend time on this. How much and how deep probably depends a bit on your business and a bit on you as well.
And it's obviously creating, huge amounts of opportunity. What do you think what's one of the biggest challenges that it's also creating for a SaaS company CEO?
I think if you're someone who enjoyed the stability and predictability of the market pre-AI, you were probably not sleeping well at night. For me personally, I had forgotten how much I love the uncertainty of the early days of trying to figure out how to break into the market and trying to get our product working and make sure we're delivering a great experience for customers. And so I'm really enjoying all of that uncertainty that AI has brought, because I feel like I can internalize the information and see a clear path. But if you spent 10 years studying the SaaS industry before you decided to take your leap and you felt like you understood it, well, unfortunately, like things are so, like all of your assumptions, or each assumption you have might have to be thrown out at some point over the next few years. And that can be very unsettling.
Lastly, what's your personal favorite AI tool that you're using? And what's the one that you spend the most time in? Maybe they could be the same, but they might be different.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've played around with a lot of them. I think like most people, I spend the most time in ChatGPT, but I also love Claude and Claude Code and then Lovable. Recently, I've been vibe coding some. I made a Pokemon collection product for my son. And so we were able to like add his Pokemon cards into that and track prices. And so I did that in Lovable. That was fun. But I think I spend so much time asking questions from ChatGPT and then coming back a few minutes later once it's finally done. That's probably the one I use the most.
Awesome. Well, Colin, really appreciate you coming on this SaaS Revolution show today. Good to see you again, and thank you for spending the time and sharing this with the SaaStock community. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Alex.